Today I'm building superheroes' origin stories out of Lego to turn these regular Lego minifigures into superheroes. We'll start with Steve Rogers and work our way to Peter Parker. Now Steve Rogers really wanted to go into war to fight Red Skull and Hydra, but Steve had one problem: he's too short and weak. So in comes this crazy scientist that gives Steve Rogers the opportunity to take some super soldier serum and get big in a secret lab that we're gonna need to build first. We'll start by attaching a barrier to the back of the build, and then we'll add a green wall that goes on top of it. And parts of that green wall are built sideways so that they can connect to the build. And there's all sorts of interesting knobs and buttons on this giant green wall. And to finish off this tall green wall, we'll add this large window to the top that hopefully no bad guys peek through. But now there's still a ton of open space in our laboratory, so we'll need to fill it with all sorts of tech and computers for our scientists to work on. And now we'll need to build the very center of the lab where we can test out the super soldier serum on Steve Rogers. Try saying that 3 times fast. But now we need to build a machine to help turn Steve into a super soldier. And this thing pretty much looks like a human-sized air fryer or a tanning bed. But now we have a way to make Steve Rogers into Captain America, and it barely closes around him. But after adding it to the build, we finally finished, and we can swap out our Steve Rogers minifigure for a Captain America minifigure so that he can go and defeat Red Skull and Hydra. This is super random, but I don't know how Lego minifigures are going to work on computers back here. I mean, their face is pretty much slammed into the desk. Now that we've turned Steve into Captain America, it's time to turn Tony into Iron Man. Now to start off Tony Stark's origin story, he was captured by some mercenaries and held in a cave, so we can use this large cave build and remove the top to use. Now the cave was located in a desert, so let's remove all of the green and colorful pieces from this temple build to make it look a little more accurate to where Tony Stark was being held. We can also remove the statue in the center, but now there's a ton of exposed studs that make the build look kind of ugly, so let's cover them up with some better looking tiles. Now Tony Stark's normal outfit with this Lego minifigure is a little too clean, so let's give him a more destroyed and beat up outfit because he's been captured. He's also going to need this little box of scraps and some tools to work on a secret project while no one's watching in the cave, which turns out to be the very first Iron Man suit, the Iron Man Mark I, which Iron Man will eventually use to escape the cave. But first, let's upgrade the figure with some flamethrower pieces that have the simple design. We can also give the Iron Man Mark I a silver jetpack so that he can blast off and take out the mercenaries and escape the cave. And now that we've finished Iron Man's origin story, let's build one of Iron Man's creation's origin stories, Vision. Well, technically this was a 3-person effort, but aside from that, Vision is a super cool and well-detailed minifigure. He's got transparent legs and a partially transparent cape at the very bottom. He also happens to have an Infinity Stone in his head, which was taken from Loki's scepter. Now Vision's origin story comes from this weird device called the Cradle, which helps create the android, which honestly looks like some form of Iron Man's Hall of Armor, especially with these side panels. So I'm going to try to add them to the build, but we'll start with this basic wall here and then add this so that we can place Vision inside of it. Then we can add those translucent panels on the side to help get the shaping down, and then we'll need one more large blue panel at the top to cover up the rest of the cradle. And then we can finally place Vision inside. No comment on whether this is size accurate or not. Also, Vision is crazy because he picks up Thor's hammer right after being created. Now let's build our next Lego superhero origin, and that's Ant-Man, also known as Scott Lang, who looks nothing like the head that this Lego minifigure has. But this Lego minifigure right here has a much better head for Scott Lang, so let's add it to this body plus some darker hair to complete our Scott Lang before superpowers minifigure. Now Scott started out as kind of a bad guy, as he was a prisoner, and when he got out he tried to rob a safe under an old man's house. But what he found in that safe was the Ant-Man suit. So instead of going back to jail for his crimes, Scott Lang took up the opportunity to be Ant-Man. Now Lego Ant-Man has a very unique set of powers which allow for him to shrink to small sizes, like smaller than a set of Lego minifigure legs, or grow to this ginormous scale that makes even Lego minifigures look tiny. Now, before the Fantastic Four got their awesome superpowers, they were all astronauts. So I went out and bought a Lego spaceship to recreate their origin story. Now, this Lego set included 2 Lego astronauts, one of a futuristic orange spacesuit and one of a more classic white spacesuit. But we'll swap those out for some more movie-accurate spacesuits in a minute. The set also includes this little build, which I assume is part of a planet, and on it are 2 rocks with some minerals inside. We also get this little hovercraft thing with a storage container attached to it, which I assume is for carrying minerals around. There's also a little drone with a propeller blade, and the final random side build is this little 6-wheeled space rover, which has a tiny little laser on one side of it and a solar panel on the other. The main feature of the rover, though, seems to be this giant posable claw that is held together with a rubber band, which is also most likely made to carry minerals. But the real reason we're here is for this Lego spaceship, so let's take a look at it. There's some engines in the back if we open up these panels. The wheels under the spaceship are made of Lego weight pieces. There are some engine and exhaust details at the very back. There's a cockpit for one pilot to fly the ship. And if we open up some more panels, it reveals some storage in the middle of the ship. Now we need to revert the Fantastic Four back to regular humans, and these astronauts won't do. Instead, we'll use these more modern blue spaceman minifigures and swap the heads out for the Fantastic Four. Reed Richards and Johnny Storm were very easy to make, but for Sue Storm we had to remove the backpack because her hair hangs over her back, and we can't just slap the thing's head on the astronaut suit because it's really Ben Grimm, who we have to make up a whole new head for, which funny enough is actually the same head LEGO used for Ant-Man. But the real question is, can we fit all the Fantastic Four members in the spaceship? Well, obviously we can fit one in the driver's seat, and we can actually fit all three, just not the right way, in the back, as one is just floating around back there. Now, as they were traveling through space, the Fantastic Four got hit with some radiation, which turned Reed Richards into Mr. Fantastic, which gave him the ability to stretch and contort his body. Then it turned Sue Storm into the Invisible Woman, which gave her the power to create force fields and turn invisible. It also turned Ben Grimm into the Thing, a giant rock monster prepped for clobbering time. And finally, it turned Johnny Storm into the Human Torch, which allowed for him to set his body on fire and fly. Now, the Black Panther has a very interesting origin story. He's also known as T'Challa, the King of Wakanda. Now, in order to become the Black Panther, you must consume a heart-shaped herb, which is a small purple plant we can make by using this little Lego stud. Now, it can be given to either add or remove enhanced abilities that allow one to become the Black Panther. When it's removed, it's used for battles to prove worthiness of the title of Black Panther, and when added, T'Challa lays down and is covered in sand and fed the heart-shaped herb, which allows for him to become the Black Panther. Now let's build the Hulk's origin story out of Lego, and that takes us to Bruce Banner. Now this is the only Lego Bruce Banner minifigure I have, and I'm not a huge fan of the hair. If we use Doctor Strange's hairpiece on Bruce Banner, it looks much more accurate to how he looks in the MCU. I'm also a big fan of this alternative head where it's got angry green eyes. Now the reason Bruce Banner became the Hulk was because he wanted to create the super soldier serum that made Captain America, but he didn't have access to a crazy scientist and a super cool lab. So instead, he accidentally turned himself into an angry green monster. So instead of using Steve Rogers' lab, we can use a new lab that I built for Bruce Banner, which has all sorts of neat tech in it, like this microscope build and plenty of other gadgets on this counter. There's a second counter right by with other stuff, including a functioning magnifying glass. There's a toxic waste bin on the other side, and then there's a scanning area with a super interesting Lego piece I've never seen before. It's like a smooth curve on top. And when that's all said and done, you can finish up by washing your hands in the other corner. Now let's add Bruce Banner to our lab, but first let's add a table. We can also add a gamma laser pointed at the table, and then Bruce Banner strapped to it like he's becoming the Hulk. Now it's time to build the iconic Lego Spider-Man origin story. Now Peter Parker works a part-time job as a photographer while in school, and he's sent to take pictures of a lab. We'll just ignore the fact that this is the same lab that Bruce Banner became the Hulk in. And while Peter's busy taking photos, a radioactive spider sneaks up and bites him, turning him into Spider-Man and giving him the ability to shoot webs. Now we have successfully recreated a ton of different Lego superhero origin stories.